Now, we have a couple sections of this video all about, pretty much all of it about Fauci, but I really, really encourage you guys to make sure that you hang out at least till section 2, where we go through what the public officials on the medical side are saying about Fauci's pardon. This is amazing. Like, it's a perfect microcosm for exactly the world that we lived in prior to Elon buying Twitter, where this was the only acceptable opinion that you could have. And it makes you feel that same feeling that you had of just that stone gaslighting, where you knew they're not only wrong, but probably intentionally wrong, or maybe just brainwashed. So definitely stay at least until section 2, where you can listen to this article right here, and it's just going to drive you insane. I think it's like 5 or 6 minutes in. Well, I know this is going to shock everyone, but Anthony Fauci has decided to go ahead and accept the preemptive pardon issued by Biden, probably because he knows he has nothing to hide. And if people start looking deep into, well, I guess, or maybe if the media started covering what has already been looked deep into as it relates to the NIH funding of gain-of-function research, as well as his lies to Congress about that funding, he just maybe wants to make sure that he's protected against that. Now, here's the deal, okay? Donald Trump pardoned the January 6th protesters, as well as some other people, as I understand it. And we could talk about that in more depth in another video if this topic really rubs you wrong when I talk about the deep injustice that I feel that this represents, that Fauci was given a preemptive pardon. Because I could tell you one thing, for anybody who feels that way, I can promise you have not read The Real Anthony Fauci, or listened to it, or actually even listen to anyone whose opinion you trust talk about it, okay, who has read it. Because when I say, like, there are, I can't think of a person in kind of modern government who deserves to be, investigated and, if convicted, jailed more than this guy. I mean, I really genuinely mean it. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm not trying to get clicks. I'm not trying to get whatever. I'm saying, like, this guy, the amount of global damage that this guy has done for reasons that I would really almost be interested to jump inside of his brain to understand, Like, I understand profit. I understand that. I understand, well, honestly, I think in his case, a lot of it has to do with ego. This is like a guy who has these massive murals painted in his house. Like, they're like, if you go, this is widely reported that if you go to his house, he has these massive paintings of himself and huge photographs of himself on his walls. You know how insane that is? Like, you seriously understand how insane that is? The guy's a government official, okay? Like that, I mean, if you really get down to it, this is a person who has been in government his entire career, right? Like, really? Being a celebrity breaks people's brains, man, I'm telling you. Anyway, but as it relates to the pardons, I think I can speak for many people saying that it's wrong. Now, here's the good news. As I also am hearing, he has some big problems to deal with, that he is not safe, okay? Now, everybody thinks that this preemptive pardon means that he can't be prosecuted. That's not correct, okay? He absolutely can be prosecuted. He can't be prosecuted federally for crimes committed during a certain period of time, okay? He absolutely can be prosecuted at the state level. Now, can you think of any states that might want to prosecute Fauci? Can you think of anybody at the DOJ who might want to do an investigation into Fauci? Okay, no one's saying that he can't be investigated, right? Okay. Now, also, you guys may have heard, Republicans control both houses of Congress. So those committees can investigate him all day long. The DOJ can investigate him all day long. Now, I wonder, with Bobby Kennedy, the author of The Real Anthony Fauci, being the head of the Department of Health, I wonder if he could potentially collaborate with the Department of Justice and, I don't know, point them in the right direction of investigations that they could start, allocating some resources towards. I would say it's pretty fair to assume that the majority of American voters would support that. And they can use federal resources to investigate Anthony Fauci, put together the strongest case of all time, and then hand it over to the most competent state attorney in whatever state we decided was best to prosecute this guy, since you can't use a federal pardon in a state case, So I don't think he's safe. I don't think he's safe at all. I think there's a high probability he's going to get brought in front of Congress over and over and over and over and over. And I think he's going to have to answer some very hard questions. I think that these guys really believe that they were never going to lose control of the government again. And I will keep on coming back to this. Everybody who's getting super bent out of shape at Elon Musk right now, I completely understand that. Everybody's really mad. As a matter of fact, I might even include some of this Nazi salute thing in this video. But like, and obviously I know you guys are not buying into the Elon Musk Nazi salute thing. By the way, you understand he did that on purpose, right? Like, of course, you really think Elon Musk did that by accident? If Elon would not have bought Twitter, they would have never lost control again. I really believe that. And I also believe that if you subscribe to my channel, all of your dreams are going to come true starting tomorrow. So if you subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. That way you know every time I upload, and then you like this video. I don't know, man. I feel like a genie with a bunch of wishes is going to pop into your life. Keep in mind, before Elon bought Twitter, right, when they had total control, this is the message that everyone was getting, right? Like listen to this, dude. This is from yesterday. Fauci's pardon. It's really a shame, public health officials say. Many are saddened that it had to come to this. Members of the public health community are relieved that the pardoning of Anthony Fauci, former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, protects him against inappropriate legal battles. But they're disappointed it had to come to this. Inappropriate legal battles, okay? This is, I mean, try to actually wrap your brain around that statement from these doctors and from these, these medical journals. It's like, dude, you guys understand that he lied. He funded gain of function, which was illegal in China. He lied about it to Congress. He funded maybe the biggest medical cover-up in history. We know this for a fact. Okay? Why do you think that it's came to this? Quote, it speaks to the corrosive impact of misinformation on the well-being and safety of a man who has done nothing but work to save lives his whole professional career. This is George Benjamin, executive director of the American Public Health Association. It's a disservice to Dr. Fauci that they felt this was necessary. It's unbelievable. It is really unbelievable how delusional and how uninformed these people really are. Okay? Like, I have a lot of family that was, they're retired now, but they were really high in the medical establishment in the private sector. And I'm telling you, like, if I have this conversation, this is one topic, like, they're not having it with me. If I was like, you understand, like, you do understand, like, this would be the conversation. You understand that Anthony Fauci, when this first started, had a meeting with all the top virologists nationally, right? They all, in the notes from this meeting, all said that the cleavage thing, the cleavage, whatever. They're all saying this is an enhanced, man-made version of this virus. And from that moment on, all of a sudden, there's this secret meeting. There's all these messages between them that they cannot say anything over digital, that they have to drive directly to Fauci's house to have any kind of interaction with him. It's all going to be in person. They all got burner phones. And right after that secret meeting, they all put out completely opposite stories of what they said in that meeting, which was, this was definitely not man-made. This was some kind of thing between a bat and a rooster or whatever their nonsensical stuff was. Like, this is not even up for debate. This happened. All of their opinions were that this was man-made, came out of Wuhan, that the NIH, the ones who were at the NIH, they knew that they funded it. And then they ran an intentional disinformation campaign to distance themselves from it by saying that it was definitely not man-made. And they went into like CIA mode. And by the way, the gain of function research they paid for was illegal. Like, you guys are the ones telling us that COVID was the worst thing ever. Do you know anyone who died of COVID? I do. One of my favorite fighters of all time, his dad died of COVID. Like, I'm not one of these guys saying COVID wasn't real. I'm saying every single death that resulted from the virus, every single death that resulted from the jab, every single injury that came from the virus, every single injury that came from the jab, that's all these guys' fault. They made this virus against the law. It was against the law. They did it and then they covered it up. So what are you talking about? It's really a shame, and I hope we can very quickly evolve back to the world where facts matter and we can de-escalate these threats, Benjamin said, noting that Anthony Fauci had to have security with him just about everywhere he went for a guy who works in a research lab and was a darling to both political parties for many years. Have you read RFK's book about him? You understand how fast he would have gotten sued if any of that was not true? Anthony Fauci is an evil person, an arch criminal who did not care about people's health at all and cared. I mean, I can't live in a world where a person who could do what he did is not a sociopath. He has to be. Angela Rasmussen, a PhD and American virologist at the University of Saskatchewan in Canada. I know I'm mispronouncing that. Media posts were closely watched during COVID pandemic, said this on X. Never thought I would see the day when Tony Fauci, a lifelong public servant who built NIAID into the global standard for supporting infectious disease research under both parties' rule, would require a preemptive pardon to protect him from political persecution. Yet here we are. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's like, do you think it's possible that the world you think that you lived in might not be exactly the world that you lived in? Okay, because I do live in that world. If someone showed me the evidence against Fauci and it was against someone that I thought that I supported, I would flip instantly. I'd be like, okay, so this is real. There's no argument here. He really did all this stuff. Anyway, but like I said, Elon bought Twitter and changed the entire road of the future, which is why these people hate Elon Musk also. I think the moment where the war, the proverbial war, we were in a civil war. If you guys have not, still are, we just kind of won. But if you have not figured out that that's exactly what was in it, was like that's the moment where we broke the back of the enemy, and it was just a matter of time for them. Now we can look back at history and we can know that. Okay, so anyway, point being though, is he's behaving in a way where he thought he's going to get away with this, dude. Now I realize there's a lot of people who probably still to this day think that virus was so convenient in terms of the timing that maybe they even did it on purpose. I've heard many people discuss that. My personal opinion on that is I have no idea. Honestly, I don't have any idea. And the reason I say that is because we have so much information about their about what Anthony Fauci said to all these other guys and them scrambling around and don't have this conversation in public, all that stuff. Okay, so we do know, that's how we know that Anthony Fauci required a preemptive pardon, right? Okay, well, so why would they be scrambling around like that in the event that Fauci was involved in doing it on purpose? Do you know what I mean? It's like, if it was done on purpose, it's above that guy, is my point. Which really begs the question, came from China, right? Came from China. So maybe if someone did release it and it was done with the express intent of making sure Donald Trump did not win the election, I think that's very possible. But I don't think it's Americans that did it. I don't think it's Fauci. I don't even think it's probably Bill Gates, because Bill Gates would have involved Fauci if it was. I think it's China. China might have done that. They definitely did not want Trump to win. They did whatever they wanted with Joe Biden, as we're finding out today that there's a whole new investigation into the Bidens, by the way, a bunch of new bank accounts that are showing money coming into the Biden administration, to Joe, like Jim and Joe Biden. It's like, man, and they're from China, by the way, money coming into them from China. And it's like, man, dude, I don't like it though, dude. I'm going to be honest. I don't like that we're looking into that right this second. It's like, they're gone. Now, if they were committing straight up treason, if they were selling us out, because there's a big difference between corruption, and corruption. All right. And I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I will continue to make good points throughout this. If I go on a tangent, there's a reason. The reason that I don't love us going down the rabbit hole of chasing after Joe Biden is the exact same reason that I didn't like them chasing after Trump, except Trump was much worse because they were doing it purely with kind of, they're just trying to get Trump, right? And in my opinion, they were basically manufacturing all of this stuff from everything I could see. And now, even if Joe Biden took money, he's now out. He lost, right? It's over for them. I still don't like the precedent of us going after former presidents at all. That said, okay, there is a huge difference between corruption, and corruption. Like, this is my point that I was making a second ago, is this. Like, if you're talking like Burisma, right? Like, if this is what you're talking about, Burisma, which is a Ukrainian energy company, has the vice president's son on their board, and they're paying $1 million a year to, which is dog shit corruption. Like, that's not a lot of money, dude. And what they're paying for is to get favors from the United States, which ultimately was just, they got a prosecutor fired who was investigating corruption in a Ukrainian energy company. I don't give a shit about that. I got to be honest. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I give a shit about it, but like, in terms of how big of a deal it is, it's not that big of a deal because it doesn't really affect the United States, right? A corrupt Ukrainian energy company, they're all corrupt, I assume. I assume basically every company that's in any of these countries is corrupt to some extent. And if an American gets some money out of it, who's in a really high position, as long as they are still only focused on, you know, the best interest of the United States, then it's not a high priority on what we should allocate our resources towards. Like, in terms of like, is it worth setting the precedent to bury this president because he took money from a corrupt energy company to protect him from other Ukrainians? Like, I don't really care about that. Now, if he's selling secrets, like if we're talking about the kind of stuff that we talked about in the Hillary Clinton video where they're, you know, she potentially was leveraging her private server as a Dropbox to sell top secrets to foreign adversaries that are putting money into the Clinton Foundation. We're talking about massive corruption, selling our country out. That's a completely different thing. Absolutely, completely different thing. As a matter of fact, if we're talking about anything that leads to Americans dying, okay, or Americans losing their jobs, that's basically, I mean, that's the line in the sand for me, is like, how did this affect Americans? Are there any Americans that got fucked by this? You know, and if there are, then we ring them up. But we need to make sure that is very clear, that that's why we're allocating resources towards that, is because what they did hurt Americans, okay? Hurt Americans. And I'm not saying you give them carte blanche to go be corrupt internationally. Of course, there has to be some kind of oversight, but I'm saying we should be merciless on politicians who take actions that are corrupt, or any kind of you know, government agency or any kind of government agent or anybody who's in a role with our government. If they do something that is against the law or is even ethically questionable and it ends up hurting Americans, that needs to be a line in the sand that is not negotiable. Okay, that's why when you throw you throw the book at one guy because he made a payment to someone where he didn't want them to tell a story about an affair that he had, I look at that and I go, get out of here with that, dude. That's pure nonsensical politics. Get out of here, dude. Okay? You have not moved the needle on that for me at all. Okay? But if you fund gain of function research, which is a threat to all of humanity, okay, which was against the law, by the way, okay? So we outlawed it. It was no longer allowed in the United States. I don't know why it was allowed in the first place. I understand conceptually, make the virus so you can make the cure. And by the way, how'd that work out? I mean, if there's ever been a case against gain of function, I guess this should be it, right? You made COVID, you made the COVID that ended up being the source of the pandemic. Where was the cure? Because from my seat, what you did is you tested an untested technology that you've known about forever, which is the mRNA, and it turns out not very effective, huh? Right? So why'd you make the virus? What was the purpose of making the virus? And so if you're making other things like MERS, it literally has a 50% death rate, I've heard. They did gain of function on a MERS strain that would kill 50% of the people who got it. Why? Why on earth would you do that? Okay, you had your shot to campaign for gain of function with this COVID thing, and you failed. You couldn't have failed worse. We said you can't do gain of function. You moved that to China. You funded it through the NIH. You got caught. You covered it up. You changed the definition of gain of function research, tried to pretend like that makes you not committing perjury when you go, oh yeah, we didn't do gain of function. Go look on the website. You're like, you changed the definition 5 minutes ago. The definition that it's always been, you absolutely did that. And then you lied to us in front of our faces. You committed perjury. You broke the law when you did the funding. You broke the law when you covered it up. You broke our trust when you used the funding that we give you at the NIH to then bribe all of these guys. to fabricate your findings and pretend it was some bat soup that caused COVID. Okay? Your test case for gain of function is dead. You have failed, and you belong in prison for that. And also, we should never do gain of function ever again. So getting back to the point of the video, the headline of the video is this: Anthony Fauci's not out of the woods. And what you can expect is congressional hearings, congressional investigations. The Department of Justice, in my opinion, is very likely to investigate Anthony Fauci. And if they build a case, they can't prosecute it in federal court, but the states can prosecute it. Which states do you think are not, potentially going to have a prosecutor willing to bring that case? Okay, California, New York, Illinois. You get outside of those, dude, and outside the Northeast. Okay, you tell me, dude, who's the most capable prosecutor that we have in the rest of the country operating at the state level? Because I would imagine the vast majority of them would be lining up to take this case on, And then here's the other thing. I mean, I'm trying to think like Trump, dude, right? Trump is a problem solver. Okay. If he's anything, he's a problem solver. So think about this. The federal government gives funding to states for all kinds of stuff. Okay. There's the ability to do that all over the place, especially if you have the ability to control Congress. So let's say hypothetically, you wanted to provide additional money for a specific case to a state that's going to run the route for you because you can't do it at the federal level. I would imagine there's probably a way that you could sneak $5 to $10 million into one of these bills. I mean, this is all Congress does, is sneak money into bills. Well, why don't you sneak $10 million into one of those bills for the state that's going to be responsible for prosecuting Fauci, and then, pick the best person there to prosecute it. The DOJ does a lot of the investigation, and boom. I don't think that there's any law against the DOJ helping with an investigation, right? You do a joint task force and then it's prosecuted at the state level, right? Can't imagine that there's a problem there. So anyway, unless Anthony Fauci has designs on winning the election to become president of the United States, like Trump did, which is how he beat all of those, very, very dishonest cases, I have a feeling that Fauci has definitely not heard the last of this situation. Now, the January 6th stuff, I think they're probably not going to get rung up, dude. They're probably just going to be off the hook, even though they behaved in a way that, as far as I'm concerned, would be tough to say was not treason. But Fauci, that's different, dude. That's different. Every single American in this country remembers exactly how the pandemic affected them. Okay? Now, in my world, I got to be honest, the pandemic ended up being the catalyst for what is now my life, which is 100 times more favorable than it was before, because we started working from home, which allowed me to start this channel, which then blew up big enough to where I could quit my day job, which then it really blew up. Gabrielle, same exact type of thing. And now we are our life's a fucking dream compared to what it was in 2020. But guess what? We also had to flee California because Fauci and his buddies made it so normalized to strangle the public with their pharmaceutical nonsense that they outlawed our medical exemptions, and not just for the vaccine for COVID, but for all of them. Like, where we had medical exemptions, doctors were like, it's not safe for your kids. Both you and Gabrielle had challenges. Your first kid got hurt by it's not safe. And they were like, no, well, if you want to live in California, they have to take all 72 shots. And we were like, I don't think you can even understand what that feels like. I don't think most people can even put themselves in the position to really understand what that feels like when the government takes away a choice like that. I mean, for me, I'm not even going to pretend that I was super in the know about all this stuff. My wife was, and I tried. I mean, this is one thing that I tried to push back on. I'm like, everybody takes shots. I didn't know anything. I'm like, I got shots. We're fine, dude. Everybody did. We're fine. I didn't realize that they were taking 10 times as many as many as I did. Not to mention, my mom didn't even finish mine because I got hurt by one too. And Gabrielle didn't even finish hers. And it was when she was growing up, it was 10. Her mom didn't finish hers because she kept getting sick. And then we have children, and shockingly, our very first one gets hurt by one, and then they're like, look, you guys genetically not safe. And the state was all, too bad, you have to do it to all your kids. Gabrielle is 100% convinced that our middle child would have had serious life-changing adverse effects if she would have been forced to take it. She thinks the oldest and the youngest would have been fine, and our middle would not have. And without getting into the weeds on Gabrielle, I'm telling you, her understanding of the body and being able to kind of like, I've always said she has some kind of psychic thing with people's like bodies and systems. She's an acupuncturist. She's like she's a medical professional. She went to a 4.5-year program, master's program in Chinese medicine. But like, I believe her, dude. And I'm all the way convinced to her side of the fence on the overall issue. But anyway, now I'm just rambling. I love you guys. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Bye-bye.